Good afternoon, Sean here, Mountains Garage. Another day working on the 71 Nova. Gonna finally move the engine and stick it in the chassis. I did a little prep work this weekend, but didn't complete the mission. So I'm back at it today. So everything's disconnected. I took the carb off. I snuck my way around gently with the clear engine paint. The aluminum I had blasted, it was raw. I was afraid it was probably going to turn on me pretty quick. Hopefully that preserves it a little bit. I threw the motor mounts, the engine stands in this frame and bolted it all up. And I'm truly amazed that it's just so relaxed where it belongs. I hope it's as natural in the car. I also clear coated the carb and it looks pretty nice. Again, I had blasted it. It was pretty raw. And I'm afraid it was going to weather really quickly. Hopefully the clear paint preserves it, and when I eventually someday have to rebuild it again, it won't be like removing all the black paint. And yeah, I capped everything. It's still full of gas. So I capped everything with male and female 6 AN plugs. I guess I'm going to go ahead and tip it upside down and drain the fuel out of it, because when I connect the throttle linkage, I want them check for full throttle and stuff, and I really just don't want to pump the engine full of gas for no reason. So you just talked me into it right then. I'm gonna drain it out anyway. The journey from here to there is a tortured course, and it's my own fault, but it's not that bad. I could remove the radiator support off the test run stand, but I'll just jack it up over it, because if I take it off I gotta put it somewhere, and I'll just leave it where it is. If it was going in the 72, I'd use this. It swings right over the engine bay. I made it so you could hang the engine on a chain and make mounts and stuff. It worked pretty good. And I've lifted heavier stuff with it, but I'm not going to do that anymore. I don't want to ruin my lift. I could see things going bad. It's definitely not approved by anybody but myself. I'm the only one using it, and I try not to overload it. A lot of times I'll come in over the fender with the engine crane, but today I'm going to go over the grill. But there's always the moment where the engine itself is over sheet metal that you get nervous about that offshore cylinder and that inexpensive engine crane you bought. But I'm not sure paying more for one would change that. You're always going to get that awful feeling of things that could go wrong, especially if it's not your car. In this case, I'd be the only one that's sad. Well, we got halfway. I'm glad I'm using an empty power glide, because that made it easier. I made it up through the alley here. And I decided to pause here and take off the flywheel. And the morning I was getting it ready to run, my thought process wasn't all it should have been, and I went ahead and Loctited these flywheel bolts. I put it on with that. Now it won't take it off. Guess I'll have to bust out the air. Further reflection, I should have just changed the battery in the M18. There's nothing I've ever tried it wouldn't take off. I don't think today's the day either. But I thought of that after I broke out the gun, and it buzzed them right off. It didn't even work very hard. I also work hard in every video to include a couple dirty old socks I use as rags. But my buddy, world famous Bob, would call this a pointed pig stabber. Like he'd go in the tool truck and ask him for a couple of them. But behind the flywheel, it easily worked it off there. It's pretty tight over the ring on the crankshaft, so I worked it back and forth gently with that. Left a couple bolts in it so it didn't surprise me on my steel toes. I will, once it's in the car. I have several pilot bushings to choose from. I have a pilot bearing as well. And I'll have to touch the paint up back here, because future generations, when they pull the clutch and flywheel out of this, I wanted to look at a nice clean block. And why not pause with the engine dangling over there to see if the 10.5 clutch will fit? It does. They gave me both bolt patterns. Can't beat it. I found this to be interesting. I'd forgotten this fact about this center force clutch. Rag disc. Puck. Rag disc. Puck. Street and strip, I guess. They wanted to give you both flavors. Interesting. You want to talk about wicked tight. I just cleared the oil pan. I got a rag on the actual hood, but she cleared. So when I lower that a little bit, she's gonna go. Never touched the thing. The Eagle has landed. She slid right in. It's tight. I figured with the tall valve covers, it's going to be tight, but I think we're okay here. And I believe I can maintain the power brakes. I looked at 1,000 internet photos, and I think it's okay. Getting the cover off with the studs, if I had to, might be an issue, but the studs have Allen sockets in the top of them, so I could just remove the studs. They might come off crooked, you never know. The engine's going to dip down a little bit in the back, I think, but the bolt slid right in. I'm going to try the headers on first before I get crazy bolting up the motor mounts. I won't tighten them until the transmission's in place and everything is relaxed like it should be. I usually put this between the block and the firewall when there's no transmission or exhaust to hold anything up. And by the way, if you're paying, you can use cash or check. I leave this outside and people put money under it. Pretty handy. And right in the middle, while I was right over the grill, when I paused to take the picture, Papa Bear, that's me, got a call from Baby Bear, that's my son, who's in the house. You know, he was wondering what he should have for a snack. Important communications like that. Well, they're important to him. And now I kind of want a snack too. One day on Marketplace, these two metal stands came up, and they're the perfect height with the lift on its lowest lock. It doesn't lock any lower to the ground than this. You can stand on these. I got one for each side. And they're super handy. They came in handy this afternoon because I've pulled this header in and out about 7 times so far. The driver's side header, the hard one, because I have interference with the steering box. You may recall I was pretty happy using this Nova subframe for a test run stand because I could go ahead and try the headers on, but I was so confident with all the room I had a power steering box right there. I probably could have avoided at least having to take it in and out of the real car. Seeing as how time travel isn't an option, I can't go back over the last few weeks and test run the header over there. If I could go back a couple hours ago, I would have stopped, pulled the engine back out, and put the big block frame stands in that are sitting in the 72. That would have solved my problems. It would have moved the motor forward and over to the passenger side an inch, and everything would have fit. But I didn't do that. I thought I could just put a small crease in the 2 middle pipes. And I'm at the point now where it's almost fitting. I could almost get the motor mount in, but the motor's not going to be able to lower down to where it belongs. And I've beat the pipe in so much that I won't run it, so now I'll buy some stainless pipe and I'll cut these apart and make them fit. So disregard everything I said in the low-dollar stainless header video unless you want to go through this. Now, I know there was risk, and I'm going to fix it. But right now, I think I'll call it a day. If I had chosen the big block motor mounts, then my Z-bar wouldn't be long enough. That's the difference between small block and big block clutch linkage. So while I would be solving one problem, I'd just be making another one. That's the way the cookie crumbles. I never did get that snack. I guess I just have more opportunity now to practice my TIG welding. Oh well. Thanks for following along. The last few days and weeks, I guess. It's pretty exciting. I'll be sitting there at night and I'll be getting notifications of more subscribers. You know, last night in a 10-minute window I got 3 or 4. That was pretty exciting. Probably for really popular channels, that happens every second. But for me, compared to where I started from, it's going to be all right. I'll catch you next time. We'll keep hammering away. Catch you later.